This video I'm going to speak about if I was a boxer. Um, just what comes to my mind. I mean, recently I've been just, taking a look at some of these boxers. Um, saw some of these highlight reels. Um, just analyzing some of the best boxers that's ever lived and some of the things that they've accomplished in their lives. Um, I mean, it's obvious that I admire the skill level of certain people when it comes to combat training. That's what draws me to the martial arts. Um, it started off with the Bruce Lee, and it was Muhammad Ali as well, because my father showed me some videos of like Muhammad Ali, and that was appealing. And he showed me some movies with Bruce Lee, which is appealing. And with Bruce Lee, he was representing the martial arts, and he was a lot healthier in his expression because, he was acting and he wasn't like really hurting the people, but you could clearly see that he was like super talented in what he did, and certainly gained my respect, and pretty much eventually inspired me to start training myself. And when you see Bruce Lee making it into film, then that becomes one of your obvious life objectives. As a child or as a teenager, you're like, man, I wish I could make it in film just like him. But making it into film is extremely difficult, especially in America. Being a Chinese American, it's almost impossible. It's like trying to have a Chinese American become the president of the U.S. Doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. You don't really see any Chinese American, gaining a lot of respect within the Hollywood industry. It's already hard enough for African Americans to gain respect in Hollywood, with all the racism, and it just doesn't seem like there's any opportunities for Chinese Americans. So even though Bruce Lee, in a way, found a way to get through the door to create one movie in Hollywood before his death, I don't see anybody else that even came close. But that is an obvious part of when you're inspired by somebody to kind of want to follow in their footsteps. Now, as far as boxing is concerned, seeing what happened to Muhammad Ali and the way that he is now is not an appeal to want to go in that same route. He's just physically so handicapped that it's very sad, when you see that. So I would never have wanted to be a boxer looking at, what happened to him. But now, today, when I look at Floyd Mayweather, he seems like he's still pretty healthy, and he won 49 times, he lost 0 times. He's the richest athlete in the entire world. He's my size, my height, my weight, and he's an older guy now, and he's still so physically gifted and so talented, still winning. He just recently retired, but he's just accomplished so much, and he's gotten so much out of the boxing, and it's hard not to be inspired to try to want to go in that route, to try to do what he did. So if I ever did, get into any combat sport in my life, it would probably be boxing. If I did, I'm not going to, but if I did, it'd be boxing, because you see, like, I like the level of skill in it as far as the tactics are concerned. I like how, you knock them down and then you gotta wait for them to get back up and then you can knock them down again. I like the whole stand-up aspect of the combat. I'm not into the ground fighting at all. Even though I know that I could be very good at the ground fighting, I'm just not into it. I really, I much prefer boxing, stand-up fighting over ground fighting any day. And in addition, the industry is just a lot more successful. You notice that, like, in wrestling, there's really no industry for it unless you go into WrestleMania, which is just a form of entertainment. But the wrestling that you find in high school and college, there's no opportunities to make money, you know, because it's just not popular. Um, so the boxing, I see Mayweather and a lot of other boxers just show like the money that you could get from it, and displaying your skill and talent. And the thing about boxing, it is dangerous, but the way that Mayweather boxes, being very defensive, he makes it a lot less dangerous because he doesn't really get hit that much. If anything, he's the one that's delivering the hits. And that could be considered a lot healthier because if you're not getting hit, it's not unhealthy. When you're getting hit a lot, then that's when it becomes unhealthy. But one thing that I also notice is just, I think a lot of stuff that we see in the media is just kind of like a deception to make you think that you have a chance to do something when you don't. You know what I mean? Like, Mayweather, his father got him into the industry. His father was a boxer. And then it was easy to just get him into it. And I just read up on Chavez, and Chavez was a great boxer, and then he got his son into it, like Chavez Jr. So it's just like, once you got the connections, it's easy to just go with it. But to come from with no connections and then to all of a sudden get into it and become one of the best, it's almost like a dream, like a fantasy. I mean, it's like, think about these people that start off so ahead in life. Like, someone like Will Smith had such a successful acting career, and then immediately he just got his son into the acting. His son already starred in so many movies, and he's just a little kid. So it just shows like how this world is all about like connections and just basically being born in a situation where you're just very fortunate. I mean, in this lifetime, I'm not a boxer. That's not me. But I could see that if I did get into something, that would be a route that I would choose over any other combat sport if I did get into combat sport. But it's like somebody that's my age right now and not really looking to get into any type of combat sport and not looking to get into Hollywood. It's just, for me, there's no reason to limit myself to any specific sport or way. It's best for me to train in the martial arts and be versatile. Like, even though boxing is a great sport, I don't like the limitations of it. I don't like the idea of like putting on gloves, putting on a mouth guard. You can't kick. You can't use weapons. You can't do a lot of things. It's just like there's all these rules. You can't do this, you can't do that. And that's very limiting, and I don't like that at all. I like the martial arts or wushu, where I can just do whatever I want to do. I can use whatever weapon I want to use. I could use nunchucks, I could use a staff, I could use a gun, I could use a knife, I could use a sword. I could kick, I could punch, I could elbow, I could knee. I could, do joint locks on somebody. Like, I could do whatever I want to do when it comes to wushu. And that, to me, is the real art, is that I'm not limited by, the regulations of a certain sport or whatever the case may be. The only reason that I would, limit myself to a sport is for the intended purpose of, like, making money from that sport or whatever the case may be. But that's not my case. That's why I have the freedom to just practice whatever I want to practice and not be limited by that. And I think a lot of people are in my position. A lot of people, they're not a professional fighter. They're just interested in, combat sport or the martial arts, and they find it appealing. They like watching martial art movies. They like watching Jet Li and Bruce Lee and Tony Jaa and Donnie Yen, and they like watching boxing, and they just love watching the stuff, but they're not professionals, and they're not going to make money in the professional field. They might be too old, or they're just not, they don't have the opportunity because they were not born with that opportunity like some of these people are born with these opportunities, you know. So they're never going to get professional. And for these people, I think it's a benefit to be able to practice martial arts in its entirety the way it's meant to be, to not limit yourself. You know, like, why go into boxing if you're not going to be a professional boxer when you could do so many other things with your body, as far as like kicking and like using weapons and training in so many different ways that are more practical for like real life survival. You know, why limit yourself to just one way? You know, so I see that there's a lot of people out there in that predicament, but somebody like that's already a professional boxer and they're trying to be like the best, there's no sense in somebody like Mayweather when he's, you know, when he's trying to be the best in boxing to all of a sudden pick up like, you know, kickboxing, or to pick up, you know, or to learn how to use nunchucks, or to, you know, get into ground fighting. I mean, there's just no sense in him doing that, or training for street survival. I mean, there's no need for him to do that because he needs to you know, focus all his attentions into boxing so he could be the best in boxing. You know, but if, you know, if half the time he's boxing and then the other half he's working on like taekwondo point sparring, you know, that time that he's wasted in the taekwondo point sparring is going to really damage his ability to become the best in boxing. You know, like, he needs to focus on boxing. After he retires, and then be a different story, then he could work on other things if he wants, because he's retired already. He's not trying to prove that he's the best in boxing anymore. Now he could do other things with his time. You know, he could play basketball, he could play football, he could play chess, he could do kickboxing if he wanted to, he could do whatever he wanted to do. You know, he could train with weapons. But when you're a professional at a certain sport, and that's what your primary focus is on, like say it's Thai boxing, you know, and you're making money from being a Thai boxing fighter, then it doesn't make sense to go into, you know, to spend the majority of your time boxing when you're under the Thai boxing rules. So I could understand people that are on the professional level as fighters, focusing specifically on that sport of which they're making money from. But as far as everybody else is concerned who are not professionals, I do not see why you would want to limit yourself in, you know, within any of these ways. You know, it's best to be able to be freely expressive in your way of combat, in which to make it practical for street survival, you know, and just longevity, you know. And that's what I like about what I do, is just I'm not limited by anything. Like, I could use whatever I want to use, you know, I could do whatever I want to do, you know, whatever tactics. And I like to train the entire body, you know, to like utmost efficiency. And I think that a lot of the people out there, you know, they're in the same situation, you know. And I say that a lot of the Chinese martial arts are focused on survival training. Jeet Kune was focused on survival training. Wing Chun's focused on survival training. Chole Fut's focused on survival training. And my art, my personal expression of the martial arts, you know, in Kung Fu, is focused on survival training. Tai Chi is focused on like longevity, like living longer, and essentially like the survival training as well. You know, other arts like Hung Gar and maybe Praying Mantis. I mean, these arts like the Shaolin, they're all focused on survival training and spirituality. But you got these you know, arts that maybe used to be martial arts that's turned into sport. Like Taekwondo has turned into an Olympic sport. Judo has turned into an Olympic sport. Karate is focused a lot on that sport, as far as like the karate point sparring is concerned, um, it's almost like a lot of these systems, and the Muay Thai boxing is focused on that sport. But I've heard that Muay Thai boxing actually came from Muay Boran, which is a lethal version of Muay Thai boxing. Muay Thai boxing is basically the watered down version of Boran. Muay Boran is basically the real deadly techniques for survival, and they had to make it user friendly for combat sports. So then they pretty much took out all the deadly techniques and made it very, user friendly for the combat sport. And Thailand's now known for like the Muay Thai boxing. So I see that the sports have overcome a lot of the martial arts in a lot of these countries, but in China, they're less focused on the sport and the combat sport, and they're more focused on the art, more of the art and survival training. And that's what I'm focused on, is more about the artistic expression and the survival training. And you even see the famous people coming out of China, the way that they're representing the martial arts, they're not really combat sport people. Donnie Yen is an actor, Jackie Chan's an actor, Bruce Lee was an actor, and you see like Chow Yun Fat is an actor. You see a lot of famous actors that practice the martial arts coming out of China. Even Sammo Hung, he's Chinese, he's an actor. And then other countries, they're known for like combat sport. Anybody that's coming out of Japan, they might have this this cage fighting stuff, they call pride, and then they're known for that too. So for me personally, I know that the combat sport is not healthy, but if I envision myself in another life, and I did get into it, and I had the opportunity, and I could be considered, one of the best, like what Mayweather's doing, then I would get into boxing if I was in that position. But I'm not in that position. I'm in a position where it's like I'm about living longer, practicing art, and surviving, on the streets, and having no limitations in what I do. It's unfortunate that, there's no opportunities, for Hollywood and things like that, but it's like in my life situations, I don't have that option either, because I have so many children to take care of. The only way that I can really reach out to the public is through the YouTube, and that's the only thing, because any other thing out there, any other like video-based sharing website out there, it just doesn't have the marketing and the power that YouTube has. YouTube just monopolized an entire video sharing industry online, and if you're not a part of that, then you will be hidden for like the rest of your life. But just being on YouTube just gives you at least an opportunity to become recognized and become well known within this community or within this world. But that's the only thing that I see myself at right now. And I see that there's a lot of people out there in the same shoes as me. Like, they're not going to be in Hollywood like Van Damme or Michael Joe White or Scott Adkins or Steven Seagal or Chuck Norris. They're not going to be in Hollywood, and they're not going to be a professional fighter. They're pretty much just love the arts. They love practicing it. They love sharing it. And then how else can they express themselves artistically? Well, it's YouTube. It's YouTube, and then it's like teaching it, opening a school and teaching, opening a school and training in it. And when you spar, you're not sparring for millions of dollars like these people on TV are like these professionals on TV. They're sparring for millions of dollars. But for you, you're not getting paid to spar, and you got to pay your own medical bills if you get hurt. And it's to nobody's benefit that anybody gets hurt. So the way that we will spar, as people that practice wushu or martial arts, we have to spar more intelligently, because we got to go to work the next day. We can't afford to have a broken nose or like a broken leg. You know, we're not getting paid for this. We're not getting sponsorship. You know, we're doing this for health purposes. We're doing this because we love the arts, but we have to watch out for our own safety. So it's a different mentality than what people are used to when they're following these professional athletes. You know, I think a lot of people in this world are in the same shoes as me, and really, you know, it could be an opportunity for people. Because social media, in a way, gives the people an opportunity to try to make it big on their own without being dependent on Hollywood. You know, there's people out there who's created some extremely successful YouTube channels and making millions of dollars, pretty much building themselves up to fame and not having to depend on Hollywood or having to get involved with combat sport. You know, so but that's some of the thoughts that are going through my mind as far as combat sport is concerned. So the people that have the opportunity to get involved in it and get to a high level, you know, that's great for them. You know, but I think there's very few people in this world that have that opportunity. You know, it's just something that's rare. And with that being said, I think that the people that are not involved in it professionally, they're not making any money from it. It just makes it even more important to just watch out for your health and your safety, because it just simply is not worth it. You know, to get knocked out or have brain damage because, you know, you just want to prove that you're better. It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't. You know, so that's what I want to share about that.